by Foley's Landscaping. If you can't hear it in the background of this entire episode, you're deaf.
Yeah. Sounds good. We're coming through loud and clear. Hey, look, your biological parents and Chloe.
Chloe, welcome to the Backpack Show. We have spoken word and page poet Kelsey Bigelow here.
She visited us once before to talk about how she's working to bring poetry into business, and we had a whole conversation about that. But she's just released an album of spoken word poems, which you can get like everywhere on all the streaming platforms. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
So in the first segment, that's what we got. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about cryptocurrency, some things you should know about it. And also going to talk about some of my favorite YouTube channels and maybe even some of yours.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
Hi,
Boom Shakalaka.
Hello.
Patrick Short. Oh my gosh, it's the Patrick Short.
And I guess I said hello, but like he was just talking to you, so I guess
it really wasn't for you.
It wasn't for me.
Not for you. Pardon me.
We have a couple sponsors to thank super quick before we bring Kelsey out. It'll just take us.
I was totally gonna forget about it.
I know.
Hey, guess who's our podcast sponsor for audio podcast? If you ever wanted to hear the sound of leaf blowers on your audio podcast, you can go to castos.com and start.
It's not Castos' fault. Don't blame Castos for that.
I would like to blame Castos.
No.
They're not. Hey, you want to do a video show like this and hear leaf blowers playing? You can get StreamYard. See Brogan.me/StreamYard.
Get your own spoken word and book poet, page poet.
Poet.
Whatever kind of poet, you got to get them yourself.
You could just end at a page if you want.
Oh.
Hey, would you like a website like FoleyBrothersLandscaping.online? You can get it. You just go to cbrogan.me/online. Use the code Chris in all caps. Make sure it's all caps.
All caps.
And all caps. And then you can get your own Foley Brothers Landscaping.
Why though with the caps? I don't understand.
It's a terrible world now.
So can we get them on so I can talk about that? I'll be like, why though?
So there's a search engine out there that's not Google. You can go to presearch.com. You can look up Foley Brothers Landscaping anytime.
No.
If you log in, though, what happens?
You get crypto rewards if you log in. If you use it without logging in, you still get really good search results. And you can actually stake pages, though. If you log in and you have enough crypto, you can stake pages so that when people search for loudest landscaping ever, they'd come to that Foley Brothers page. You could do that in pre-search.
Loudest landscaping ever, for sure.
Yeah,
so
presearch.com.
All right. So I'm gonna do something right before we grab Kelsey out here. I'm gonna play one of her poems. So
Yay!
we can hear a little bit what's on the go over here.
I'm excited.
Myself enough to know how my neck. And
oh my gosh! I accidentally pre-played this thing 86,000 times.
He did.
And then
I can confirm backstage we've heard this 86 times, but only the first 7 words.
Here we go.
The rest of it'll be a big surprise.
I have contorted myself enough to know how my neck and kneecap should curl to take up as little space as a disappearing act allows. It's somewhere between ? And whiskey pour spout. And by space, I mean existence, because taking up space used to equate with being in the way. I know how to avoid mess and remove attention, and by mess, I mean existence. See, it's no crumbs on plate to hide residue from judging eyes, because those eyes only saw flaw. I have learned to quiet like mime, with helium in my heels and mute in my voice box to remain unheard, because the herd always brought chaos, and by herd I mean the existing. So I let closed doors and headphones become my bunker from the bellows and drywall holes, and by bellows I mean their existence, while blankets of unwashed shaking became depression holders and secret keepers that hid my car-keyed forearms and ? Body, and by unwashed shaking I mean the pitifulness I thought my existence was worth until I almost let it all go.
Wow, that's powerful stuff.
There's a lot there. There's a lot and that's a minute long, that poem, Kelsey. That's a minute long. There's a lot in there.
Yeah, there is.
You sort of specialize in those short poems, though. Like they pack a punch. Is that just what happens naturally?
Yeah, I think it is. Most of this album is I don't think anything on this album is 2 minutes. I think it's all a minute and a half or less. I think there's even a couple that are like 15 seconds. I think, yeah, one thing I really got good at in poetry was find like saying a lot in as few words as possible to really, like you guys said, pack the punch you in the face with emotion and get my point across as quickly as I can.
Well, people like it. Leslie says it's amazing.
Thank you.
Chloe
Thank
says
you.
it's so good.
So
Carol
there's
says
bits in there.
bonjour.
Bonjour. There's bits in there like fist through drywall. There's bits in there like car keys on forearm. So cutting and, somebody in the house, I'm presuming not yourself, making the holes and that sort of a thing and sort of addressing and adapting to violence. What's important? Like, why does that have to be the backdrop for this that people can understand? And what do you need people to take from that?
So this piece for me was a lot about exploring mannerisms that I now have as an adult and where they came from my childhood, from traumas that I experienced in my childhood and how they formed me as an adult, whether that's my mental health or keeping
not
myself
afraid-
quiet and like doing my best to minimize my existence when really I didn't need to be doing that. So yeah, that's one of my favorite pieces because it really explores where everything I do came from, which was some of those violent moments or just ways I was treated when I was younger or things like that. But yeah.
There's also a lot in here for people. For instance, there's a poem about imperfection, and I want to throw that one on if you don't mind, so we can have that to think about.
I'm not afraid of dying from the cancer that ceased my mother's existence and temporarily ailed my father. I am afraid of dying with a lackluster contentment for a life lived in routine with a man who only makes me mostly happy, of settling for mediocrity when exceptionality was possible. I'm not afraid of the view from the top or the exhaustion it takes to get there, but of the descent that comes from looking over too far towards the pavement full of failed attempts at perfection. I'm not afraid of being disappointed, but of being a disappointment, not of being alone, replaced, or forgetful, but of being lonely, replaceable, and forgettable. I'm not afraid of dying, but of only nearly living.
Don't finish crappy books. Right, Chris? That's one of Chris's favorite
Don't finish
quotes.
crappy books.
That's the one people always say and attribute to him, and it's got nothing to do with what he actually talks about to most clients and other people in any of his books. It's just like this random thing he said, and everybody
Don't settle.
Yeah,
Yep.
don't settle.
Don't settle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So your really cheerful poetry. It must
I think what
be
you
like-
meant to say was emotionally impactful, honest, and powerful.
Yeah, I was thinking about you going to like festivals and that sort of a thing, and I was thinking, boy, they must be like, thank God Kelsey's here, because people were happy for a minute.
Oh my God! What's
Well,
wrong
no,
with you?
look, I'm getting somewhere with this. It has to be the way. These are the moods that we have to bring, but that also means, you're like the opposite of a stand-up comic. People don't go, oh, let's go hang out with her. I'm going to feel really good when I'm done. What are
No,
they
but they
supposed to feel when they're
seen.
done?
Yeah,
I
they
bet
feel
they feel
seen.
really-
They feel understood. They feel like they're not alone in the world, which I think this world needs a lot more of. I do have happy poems. They're just not particularly on this album. Yeah, and I do always joke when I'm out performing. I'm gonna make you sad for a minute, but like in between, we have conversation and we feel that connection. I think I grew up feeling very alone, and I wanted to make sure other people don't anymore.
But it's also an acknowledgement that these feelings are really powerful. They will bring you down, but that doesn't mean that you're alone or that what you're feeling is even true. Like that what you're telling yourself is even true. So they're actually hopeful in a way, because it's like, I got through this enough to reflect on it and write about it, and makes you feel like you will too.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing with this is I have a piece on there that's like the 14-second one that says, my poems now are not a cry for help. My poems now are because I cried for help years ago, and the only one who listened was my notebook. And I'm perfect. Like I had to disclaim to like all my friends and family, I'm happy. I am great in my life right now. I'm feeling good. These are from my past that I can now address and give to other people.
Chris, you're muted. Chris does his best poetry readings when he's muted.
That's why I'm muted. So listen, I wanted to play this because it leads right into what you just said in a lot of ways.
My depression looks like adding clean clothes to the pile of last week's, and the weeks before, and before that. It looks like clean dishwasher becoming counter of never made it to cabinet, and gifted books sitting on one another not quite ready for shelving, and quick afternoon nap becoming missed dinner. My depression looks like earbuds at lunch and no social media, its eyes staring at mirror in work bathroom, reminding me to hold it hostage until home, because home means being alone and safe in comforters. My depression looks like Christian music on repeat, even though I'm not one anymore, because maybe he will still fix me. My
Oh, I didn't want to keep going, but I can't hit 5 buttons at once, it turns out.
Maybe it's the leaf blower noise in your head that's distracting you from running your show the way you want to. I don't blame you.
That first description of depression, where the clean clothes on top of dirty, the dishes out of the dishwasher, but not really all the way to the cabinet, but all the way across the counter, absolutely visible. And people who have dealt with depression know that one. They know that one. Well, that's a cleanish pile right there. That kind of thing. There's a lot of ish in depression. You just talked about the fact that you had to explain to everybody that this is then, so that you can help other people going forward. What's the catharsis like after one of your readings for people who deal with depression like you?
Okay. It's the response I've gotten has been overwhelming, which is such a cliche to say for people who just released an album. But I've had people that I haven't spoken to in decades reach out to me and say they listen to my album on repeat and they just feel so less abnormal. And I've had people come up to me after shows and want to give me a hug because they totally resonated with something that I said and they didn't know someone else felt that way. It's things like that. That's exactly why I did this album. And it's more than enough to see that it's doing its job. And like you said, there's a lot of ish in depression, and oftentimes we've made a lot of progress in destigmatizing depression, but oftentimes the ish isn't talked about. It's always talked about in extremes. And when you're living with depression, it's just an ongoing numbness. Sometimes you don't always notice an episode is coming until you look around in your apartment. It's just like piled with crap everywhere. Even if it's clean, it's just piled, and because you didn't have the energy to put it away. And that's really what I put into that piece. And seeing people resonate with that makes me feel less alone, but also makes them feel less alone too.
So what's next? Like, what's the next one going to be? A reflection on your experience since kind of overcoming that period, or what's the next one?
The next project. I keep getting that question. I'm like, I don't know. We'll see.
Depends what happens to me. I don't know.
We'll see. I do have a couple other projects in the works. So I just got married earlier this year, so I'm still newlywed. So I've got poems about that, and I do have happy
Does
poems.
Does he not see the toilet paper roll needs replacing?
I do have happy poems that I do want to publish. I have a couple of collections like that, a lot of like self-love journey, just in general, appreciating life for what it is kind of things. That would technically be the next, but we'll also see what comes. Like, you never know what life is going to throw your way. I didn't expect an album.
Don't do it. Look, all you have to do is go look for Ani DeFranco, up, and then check out the number of album sales. Don't do it.
Carol says you do a beautiful job reading them too. As someone who screens a lot of voiceover artists, I can tell you it's not an obvious feat.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Leslie says, very powerful. The imagery your poetry produces is astounding.
Thank you.
Nope, don't be happy. It's not good.
It's
shit
sad.
for business.
Very sad.
Shit for business. It's no good. People don't want it.
But
She had
People
Ani
want it.
DeFranco had to like go through more hell before she got another good album.
well,
out.
Kelsey has a whole skill set in strategic communication.
That's
She's going to
true.
be
That's
just fine.
I know how to market myself.
Yeah. She's going to be just fine. Don't you worry. Maybe it'll just be Kelsey pretty soon, like just the one name like Madonna or Bono, but just for poetry. So Carol says, I love how visual the language is. I have a definite bias for that. That is what makes it real.
too.
Like the little details are what makes it real
Mm-hmm.
and relatable.
That's my favorite thing, is very specific imagery. I think oftentimes people's perception of poetry is that you can't use normal words like dishes, like, but you can. It's very powerful.
Well, it's easy to feel like the only person in the universe that like separates the Lucky Charms marshmallows out. So you can have just them, Those details are helpful. You're like, hey, you and I are not so different.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about too is that being a spoken word poet, there's a lot of different types of spoken word. There's a lot like slam poetry style, which is a lot more combative, and there's a lot more. How do you describe your style, and how do you work on that version of your poetry versus your page poetry?
Yeah. So, I used to say I was a slam poet, and then I did slam, and I still do slam, but I am not a slam poet. I'm not combative and competitive. I do, define myself as a spoken word and a page poet, particularly because spoken word poetry is very performative, and it doesn't have to be intense all the time. There should be dynamics to it. And so I guess I've never actually described my style, so I don't know. I would say I try to be very humanistic, very just natural. So some of the pieces you played today, I don't always, they're not read the same way every single time because the emotion is different in the moment. Sometimes they are more intense. Sometimes they're more reserved. Just really depends on the moment. And then in my page poetry is pretty similar, that I want that humanistic approach, and I want it to be digestible, but not like overly easy where it's just all cliches.
It makes
did
you
I answer?
both vulnerable and strong, is what I take from it, because you're opening yourself up like that, and people are seeing what you went through and what you continue to go through, but at the same time that you've come through it. So I think it's a hopeful message in the end.
Thank you.
So
That's a good way to look at it.
kelkbpoetry.com, go and get some.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kelsey,
leaf blowers.
that's my
They just wanna
spoken
be part
word
of the
is
show.
You
leaf
better have
blowers.
the best lawn I've ever seen. How many
It's
leaves
not
can there
even very
be?
big.
Do you have like a bunch of ancient oaks or something just dropping leaves like nobody's
Very
business
young.
out there?
I just
How
feel
much
like they're
can
also
there be?
directly below my window out of
They're
like
just blowing
3
them back and
buildings worth.
forth.
Yeah.
Like, are they having a leaf fight? What's going on down there?
They just know you're doing a show, so they're just like holding the leaf blower out.
I
What
want to
show
show
will be?
him.
They could have come any other day.
Plantad.
Kelsey Bigelow, we're kicking you out before more leaves blow through. Thanks so
Okay.
much for
Thank you,
coming by.
guys.
Thanks for being part of it. Really matters a lot. And people have to run out and grab the new album, Depression Holders and Secret Keepers. Thank you so much for being part of it today.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Boop. Out just like that.
Wow,
All right.
powerful stuff, huh?
Huge stuff. Huge stuff. So much to take in. So much to think about. So
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's great. I always love hearing creative people of all kinds, just because they open us up for new thoughts, new experiences, new opportunities to be somewhere else.
Well, when we first had Kelsey on, we did talk quite a bit about business and her approach to it and the role that poetry can play in it. So there's a lot more to Kelsey than poetry, but poetry like fuels all her other accomplishments, I think.
Right. And I always like bringing on poets too, because it helps some of our poets remember that they should do more poetry. So it's important.
I found a notebook of poems I wrote in like the 6th grade, and I'm like, oh god.
That's who I mean. I was thinking you.
Yeah,
you
it's me
get the poems
specifically.
out there.
Yeah, I know. It's always about me.
I have a
Me
poem
and my
from when
speech
I was
impediments.
age 13 called Equus Equus, and it is I like horse are neat. So there you go.
I can get with that.
So we're gonna swap entirely. Everything's gonna be different.
And this question comes all the way from the second stall, the men's room at the Home Depot, just outside of Lansing. I've never been able to locate a restroom at the Home Depot. Not a once. I just go in the drywall aisle. No one's around.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about cryptocurrency stuff, a lot about NFTs and things of that nature. And I wanted to have that experience of giving you just a little bit more to think about in that space, only because I don't know, Kerry, if like you're the same. It's probably because we follow some of the same people. We hear about it all the time right now. We're hearing about who made what amount of money, whose crazy thing shouldn't have or should have worked, like
Yeah,
crazy races to it.
there's a lot of it's funny, it's actually sort of jealousy. Like if somebody tries something and it works, they'll talk about that it worked, and then other people are like, mine didn't work. Grumble, grumble, grumble. And you see that
Right.
happening too. And it's very interesting because at this point it's so new that the people who are doing the best with it are known commodities for something totally unrelated. And they bring that success and that community to crypto. And that's so it works
Absolutely.
better. Like everything is going to work better. It's just interesting. Other people are like, I have an
Absolutely.
NFT and nobody wanted it. It's like, because you're not whoever that guy is, and you haven't spent 25 years building your community. Like you just got here and drew whatever, a toilet and on a napkin and turned it into an NFT. So
So I'll tell you, like, there's our really fancy friend Gary Vaynerchuk did a whole bunch of really silly, like he took a stack of printer paper out of a printer and took a couple of Sharpies and started making some art, and it was amazing. And Gary just sold one of those pieces, for instance, for $412,000, which is more than Andy Warhol ever sold any of his sketches for. So that tells you, the world can be an interesting place. Meanwhile, another friend of ours made an NFT of, I guess, what was a blog post, like a very small and flimsy blog post. And then for whatever reason decided to mint 10,000 of them to see if they could sell that. And one, the blog post wasn't interesting. Two, it was just a bunch of texted out words. Two, there's 10,000 copies of it. So like there's no scarcity to it. It's just crazy.
yeah, I
So,
mean, but you can't blame people for doing something wrong when it's brand new. So
right. I mean, people are trying. My friend Shlomo started a project, and it's a media project, and he commemorated me in it. So there's a Chris Brogan NFT, which is that I think I got to pick the head. I got to pick that I have a
so it's your
Macintosh.
NFT, but it's not, you didn't do it or pick it.
Right. It's of me, but it's made by Shlomo's people. So
Not nearly hairy enough.
it's no, I know I'm a pretty furry person. So like a werewolf, really, like a Wookiee. But like that's for sale. Well, I think mine is not for sale. I think I own it, but pieces like that are for sale for like a few $1,000s. So someone can come along and buy these, and if they want the collection of them, they're a few $1,000s. You pointed out to me the other day an interesting spin on NFTs, which was around land or something, right?
1 second. Everybody wants Chloe to read her poetry. She doesn't want to. They're not gonna peer pressure Chloe into reading her. Look, she's like, no, Chloe doesn't want to read poetry. Yeah, so I have some very smart friends who are very early in crypto, and one of them is Jeremiah Aoyang. And if you need to know or want to know where the industry is going, but you're not ready to like get involved with it yet, follow Jeremiah. It's J Aoyang on Twitter. He's very knowledgeable about it. And anyhow, he said something like, hey, you got to buy your piece of the metaverse now, because if you don't, then later on you'll be renting it from someone else. And I was like, the what? And I clicked the link he sent, and it looked like a Minecraft map, basically, with like these little pixels. And you could bid on or purchase these little pixels as though they were parcels of land, except they're like not actually anything anywhere. And they're like thousands of dollars, okay, for these things. And I was like, no. And or at least not yet. I kind of don't get it. Then he was like, no, someday you're really going to want that. And I don't disbelieve him, but I'm also like, I don't see it. Like, I don't get it yet. So that's why I continue to follow him, so that I can understand kind of the use case for these things. Because I'm not going to throw like thousands of bucks into somebody's pixel map right now without knowing what it's for. I don't get it. Like Elizabeth says, I don't understand NFTs. Too stuck in the real world, more likely to write a strategy or math book than poetry. Well, that's interesting.
I think
Carol
that's two
says,
different thoughts.
yeah, because her nephew just launched an NFT studio.
And that's the thing too, is there's like a few different ways to do and talk about NFTs. A lot of people are just doing art. So they're doing a collection of their art and they're doing variants on colors and styles of the art or something. And that's what they're doing. But there's other people, like we said about the land thing. A non-fungible token basically means, okay, so basically there was Web 1.0, which was websites. There's Web 2.0, which was like social media and distributed technology and distributed content. Web 3, which you don't call .0 for reasons I don't understand, but they just call it Web 3. The kids have ruled, and you're like a square if you say .0.
Okay.
So Web 3 is the internet of value, and it is how you can pass value back and forth digitally, which is what makes it new. Which sounds at first kind of like, well, don't we already have something like PayPal? But for every one of those other things, we said that same thing. Web 1.0, everyone said, well, don't we already have AOL? And that wasn't it. Like people, like when they finally started seeing web pages, went, oh, I get it now. When people started seeing things like social media and getting it, they were like, oh, I get why this isn't like AOL chat.
Wasn't that
You know
like
what I
Henry
mean?
Ford said? Like, if you ask people what they need or want, they're going to tell you a faster horse.
Faster horse. So
yeah. So you have to go those places and show people what's possible.
So there's things you can do with crypto, with NFTs and all that sort of thing that, like, for instance, so Elizabeth's a sailboat racer. So Elizabeth could, they could sell an NFT that tracks the value of how many wins her team has done or whatever, so that, you know, you could buy an investment in the team success. There's a lot of esports teams that are launching NFTs to fund new players and all that. They're like, if you buy these NFTs, this cool art of our team, we'll hire 4 more esport players. Can you imagine being responsible? Like, you buy a piece of art, but you know you're responsible for getting another person into competitive, whatever, Fortnite, Minecraft, whatever the kids are playing.
I want to turn my tattoos into an NFT. I was thinking, so it has to be weird for a tattoo artist to do their best work on somebody's skin, and then the person walks away and you never see them again. I feel like that must be difficult. Like, at least if you make a piece of art, like a painting you're especially fond of, you get to keep it. But if you do a tattoo and you're like, damn, this is the best thing I've ever done, it's going to walk away. It's like, that's the nature of it. So maybe turning it into an NFT would be helpful in that way.
So Chloe's pointing out that Kings of Leon released their latest album as an NFT. Anthony, oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? Silence of the Lambs.
Hopkins.
Sir
Anthony Hopkins.
Sir Anthony Hopkins, pardon me. That's why I probably forgot. His royal Sir Anthony Hopkins just released an NFT movie. Well, it wasn't him, but like a movie that he's in is now released on NFT. And so there are these all kind of ways that you can now use this technology to put, you know, money downstream, so to speak, and put value downstream. And most importantly, to the people who do NFTs, not the people who we hear talking about it the most, but the people who do it, community. So there's an opportunity where you're participating, like what we do with the Creator Coin at the Backpack Show. There's the opportunity to participate and be part of something and do things with the coins, not just buy them and store them somewhere.
Carol's nephew says the NFT value is determined by utility, exclusivity, and community.
Correct. So there's coins, like, and there's an NFT project called Loot, which almost sort of looks like text-based Dungeons and Dragons, like some of the old adventure games on computers. And Loot, the benefit was multiple people having it and multiple people playing and multiple people connecting. There's another one called Sad Poets, I think it's called. And Sad Poets is like that. Maybe it's Kelsey. And you can buy a coin where you don't even know if the coin is going to be a poet or a page until you execute this kind of transaction. So it makes it even more magical, because it's like a blind bag or blind box technology mixed with coins. And so that gets exciting. So it's interesting to me. It's interesting to keep bringing it up. But the reason I keep bringing it up, Kerry, is because if we hide from it, if we stick our nose in the sand, that's probably the worst of the options. There's just so many things to have to pay attention to.
It can give you kind of a headache, admittedly. Because
sure.
people will get way in the weeds on some of this stuff. And like Jeremiah, when he gets going, he sounds like a conspiracy theorist. But if you slow it down, what he's saying makes sense. And his intuition is based on decades of experience as a futurist, like into the technology space. So he knows what he's talking about. So not that I don't believe him. It's just that there's times you're like, oh God, like, look, I just have to get regular things done. Like, it is a lot to take in. I get it. So you found a few different things that simplify it pretty well for people if they need resources.
I do. I'll give you one right away. And this is, I'm going to click and show you, I didn't hit the right button. I'm going to show you I'm just going to push lots of wrong buttons. I'm just going to push
your
so
ears are
many
still ringing
buttons.
from the leaf blowing. It's okay.
Oh my gosh.
Knocked your head around.
I am in the weirdest mental space from that. So there's this swell guy named Tom Bilyeu, TomBilyeu, and he has a crypto masterclass, which is basically what it really is a whole bunch of different interviews with different people about crypto stuff. So let's see. So, there's what's his face. So I'll push play right here because this guy here, he's a macroeconomics guy whose name is totally not in my head. And just see if I get the quote.
Adoption of any technology in all recorded history. Prior to that, mobile phones was the other one.
Okay,
Transfer and storage of value for the internet. The internet from 1990 to 2000 grew at 63% a year. That was the fastest adoption of any technology in all recorded history. Prior to that, mobile phones was the other one. But what happens is the internet technology and the mobile phone technology allows for these networks to be built. And once that network's in place, it's faster to build the next network. So in India, for example, they've just basically given out free data to every mobile phone in India. So guess what? Data usage is the highest in the world. And so their internet scaling becomes faster. So the internet was huge, as we all know, and it remains huge. So at 63% a year, it then flattened out over time as more and more people got adopted. So at 1997, it was growing at 63% a year, and there was 140 million users of the internet. In 2021, there are 140 million crypto users, and it's growing at 113% a year.
So just that quote is saying just how fast it's being adopted. So even if you don't fully understand anything and you just said, oh, this is another technology, kind of like the internet was a technology, mobile devices were a technology. This one's growing 100-something% a year faster than all the other techs that were growing.
Chloe says she thinks it's intimidating for new people, especially when they see how much some of the NFT pieces are going for, like the items that trend.
Right. And so those parts of it, I admit, are what kind of tickle my some of my pineal gland or something. I go, oh, I want to go after that. So for instance, there was a guy who bought a Bored Ape NFT, got in huge trouble with his wife for it because he paid $3,000 for a piece of digital art, and his wife was like, "You big like everything," she just let go on him. And then a few months later, he sold it for $2.1 million. So he put all of his kids through whatever college they wanted by selling a digital picture of a monkey. And so those things, trigger, like, my salivary glands go, and I go, oh, I can make so much money.
You and everybody else. But, that's like usually when that happens once, it never happens again because everybody jumps in and it sort of evens the playing field a little bit.
You start to hear, like, it flattens pretty quickly. But like yesterday, there was a thing. Yesterday, there was some new project going on, and I couldn't really understand it. And Jeremiah was excited about it, and so was Chris Messina, who invented the hashtag and all that. And then, like, a few moments later, it was done. Like it was like there was a thing, and then it was like it was done. But then people who like got on the bandwagon fast enough, they had paid like $2,000 and then immediately turned it around and sold something for $20,000. And I thought, my gosh, even just on a day, just on any regular day,
that never happens to me.
Give me $2,000 and I'll give you back $20,000. Like, that's, you understand at least what that means.
Nah, it never happens to me. I would give you $2,000 and end up with like $10. Not because of you. I mean, it's me.
Hey,
it's
Roy.
like how things work out for me.
Well, yeah, but so that goes into another whole area where I'm learning, and it's the whole manifesting thing and the whole that secret law of attraction thing. If you wander around the universe saying that never happens to me, nothing like that ever happens to me, you send out that energy to say,
All right,
like, "No, I don't want it."
historically, it hasn't. If we are to look at facts, I'll say that then.
I always
But in
just
the
try to,
future, it's
I just try
definitely
to
going to
embrace.
happen. I'm going to
Boy,
go
is that
buy
coming?
NFT
That's
right
all I
now.
do. Look, so the minute I started saying something very positive about crypto in my life and saying, okay, I'm just gonna ride it. I'm just gonna go with it. This last week alone, the holdings I had just started to rebuild went from something like $11,900 up to just under $18,000 in 1 week. Now, at the same time, since June, I gave $20,000 to a stock investor guy, and it is $30 more than what it was since June when I gave it to him. He made me $30 so far, but told me, don't worry, keep waiting, because it's a long ball game. And so I made almost $8,000 in 1 week, or I made $30 in 6 months, or 4 months, or whatever it is. So I feel that not only do we have to learn about it, but I also feel like we have to keep our eyes open to it, because it's going to happen to everybody. Our mortgage is going to be collected by these kinds of methods. The next few houses we buy, there may or may not be a crypto element to it, like an NFT element to it. Meanwhile, Kerry, my father is looking for Jeremiah's.
Oh, it's at, I'll type it in. It's at Zhao Yang, basically JOWANG on Twitter. I will put
You
it up.
missed a Y in there, but that's so good.
Oh, whatever. Suck it. Manifest that, okay?
Manifest that. Zhao Yang, Jeremiah Ao Yang. He's based in the
California.
Bay Area.
isn't it? Mhm.
Yep. He is famous right now also for having set up his work from home office inside an Airstream.
Oh, that's
So
right.
He's an ambassador for Airstream.
Yes.
He was a very long time ago a Forrester research expert.
He's
And
really clever guy, and yeah, and known as for being a futurist. So he spotted the gig economy coming like before it arrived, and the share economy coming before it arrived. And yeah, I always listen to him. He's one of the guys that, you know, you see him test the wind and go in a certain direction, and you can be pretty sure we're all going to go that direction in like 5 years or less.
he dragged us into those creator coins. You know, he's why
Kicking
we have
and
the vector
screaming.
coin. Really dragged. Dragged is the only word.
Now look at you
So-
manifesting all that success.
Yeah. Oh, look, now I hear fire trucks. Maybe they're coming to get my leaf
With
blown.
great rewards comes greater risks, says your biological father.
You know, so that is also true. One of the things I'm told over and over again is it's almost like a pot in poker. You only put in the pot what you're willing to lose. Like you never put your next month's mortgage in the pot. You put what you're willing to lose. So maybe it's 2 nights out to eat or something like that. But in every turn, if you can throw a little bit of money here and there at these kinds of projects, you learn a little bit. I invested some money for no real reason into a joke coin called Shiba Inu. And I did it because I saw something on Reddit and I thought it was funny. And I said, oh, that's kind of funny. I'll put a couple $100 in. And by absolute sheer circumstance, this has nothing to do with anything. Elon Musk says, hey, I just got a new Shiba Inu. Her name is Floki. And the coin went, wah, 376% return in a week. That's how life is going right now.
Then what you really need to do is get somebody to get a job as his assistant and feed him things.
Just say this next, Elon.
Like take over his Twitter for him. Wow. Now we're talking about gluten-free bagels.
Yeah. You can get
You're
gluten-free
off the
bagels for
rails.
sure. Shakshuka is really good. I make shakshuka just to kind of mix and match some of my breakfast where I have all the eggs.
I say bless you when somebody says shakshuka.
It's a great meal. So anyway, I mean, we're not, what would I say? So we're not super, I'm advocating, you're maybe not as much advocating, but I am saying that to not pay attention to this technology, to turn your head. All right, I'll tie it to this. I had a woman say to me, she's worried about ageism in marketing. And she said, I'm worried that I'm going to be an old lady as it appears to marketing sooner than I really want to be. And this person, by the way, is in their mid 30s. And they were like, what would you do to age proof yourself? I said, well, and I have opinions because I surround myself with people who are facing that with different strategies, right? We have a friend who has really good surgeons. We have other friends who have, who try to stay really current.
Jeremiah Aoyang read the book Fitter, is it Younger Next Year, and says it turned everything around for him, and that he's fitter than he's ever been, and that physically it makes you younger by a large margin than your years. And
so one of the things I said is that one way to instantly get old is to start throwing away new technology, to start throwing away new trends, to hear something like the metaverse, which we didn't talk about, and just go, whatevs, right? So I don't know where this Liz thing came from.
I'm not saying that I will, well, because they're talking about like cooking and things like that. But I'm not saying that I will never buy a plot in the metaverse. I actually did think about it. But what I'm trying to figure out is which one's going to be the one. Because a lot of people had a beta, videotape player back in the day. There was beta and there was VHS, and beta lost. And so I don't want to have a beta. I don't want to drive an Edsel, like whatever the crypto version of an Edsel is. I don't want it. So I'm trying to like maybe not be the early adopter, but like the second wave or something.
One of my favorite people, Linda Lepecki, says, I'm almost 70 in marketing. I'm not worried at all. My brain still thinks it's 30, which is why I still get your Smart Start newsletter all the time. I think it's a great newsletter. I think it's full of awesome ideas, and your brain acts like it's 30. That's for damn sure. The metaverse thing, yeah. I mean, because who's putting their money into it? Facebook has put a ton of money into it. Roblox has put in money into it. Fortnite put its money into it.
I already invest heavily in Roblox because I have a 13-year-old.
That's right. Was it a Valkyrie hat or something? I don't know. You had this.
He did chores for, 4 or 5 months to save up enough to get this insane piece of it was a helmet, a Valkyrie helmet, to wear during the game in Roblox. And people will just walk up to him and ask him for money. They think he's rich.
Right, because they think he's rich. Which is an NFT story from yesterday. Dolce & Gabbana had a sale online, $6 million in digital fashion. There's not a thread, not a single thread left the Dolce & Gabbana sewing machines. $6 million in digital fashion. Now, the question keeps going forward like that, which is, say you're a Nike person. Would you pay money to have Air Jordans on your characters in Fortnite? Would you pay the same, kind of money to have those same Air Jordans transfer when you go to Roblox or elsewhere? If there is a business version, if there's a business version of this metaverse, like heaven forbid the, Second Life Part 2 or something like that, Third Life, are we going to pay for our clothes there again? Am I going to buy a Tom Ford suit just so I could be like that in some digital land? And the answer might be yes.
For sure.
Look at things like Snapchat and TikTok filters. In a world where if we were covered in filters more often, would you pay for designer filters?
You would if your personal brand depends on you being at the forefront, noticeably so, then you might, because it makes you more conspicuous.
What if you had green hair? Would you pay to have fiery green hair? You might. Anyway, that's us talking about the things. So.
I'm going to manifest some things.
Manifest. Get into it. Pay attention, my man, Sadhguru. Okay. Sadhguru, for instance, has a funny one. He's a bit of a comedian on his own time. So I'm going to show you one last little thing before we get out of here. Doo-doo. Doo-doo.
If you believe in physics and the arches of the universe, it started out as sort of quarks and leptons, and heavy elements formed. We are essentially evolved hydrogen. If you just leave hydrogen out for a while, it turns into us.
I don't want to comment on Elon Musk. Well, he's made a nice car. The first one that he made on the Lotus platform. So that was faster than a Ferrari. I drove that one. I have no complaints about him. But he must restrict himself to cars, maybe airplanes, maybe even a rocket. But he shouldn't talk about human mechanism. It's a different matter.
There we go. That's my man Sadhguru slapping down. Go for it.
You were talking. Now we've gone from poetry to cooking to NFTs and back again, and ageism. We've covered quite a lot of ground. It's interesting.
You know, the Backpack Show is a lot more fun than it used to be sometimes, don't you think?
I don't know. I always have fun, but I could have fun at like an insurance seminar. So it's probably not a good.
What do you think would make your Uncle Phil tune into a Backpack Show?
Oh boy, in my experience, absolutely nothing. But my Uncle Phil would follow me on LinkedIn, and then he would say, "Hey, I heard you've been talking to." That was basically his entire feed.
It happened.